Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Spiritual upliftment of souls within Islam. Having fulfilled the first pillar of Islam, namely Shahada, the confession of faith, our duties are to follow the second and third pillars, namely Salah, meaning prayers, and Zakah, meaning charity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has repeatedly paired together Salah and Zakah in the Qur'an. Upon further study of the Allah's book, one discovers that He has also revealed verses related to prayers and charity, which guides us how to uplift spiritually our souls. This is a noteworthy subject. However, every verse quoted must be studied and interpreted bearing in mind the entire message of the Qur'an. Here is a divine message on the subject of Zikrullahi, meaning remembrance of Allah. I quote, Allah created the heavens and the earth in true proportion. Verily, there is a sign for the believers. Recite what is sent to you of the book and establish regular prayers. For prayers restrain shameful and unjust deeds, and remembrance of Allah is the greatest. Zikrullahi Akbar. And Allah knows what you do. Chapter 29, verses 44 and 45. The opening of this divine message is addressed to the believers, and consequently the end part of the message, Zikrullahi Akbar, is also communicated to the believers. On the topic of remembrance of Allah, Allah has guided further. And I quote, and bring your Rabb, creator and sustainer, to remembrance deep in your soul with humility and in reverence below thy breath, both in the mornings and in the evenings, and be not of those who are heedless. Chapter 7, verse 205. The ending, and be not of those who are heedless, cautions the listeners, be not like those who hear the message correctly but observe it not. Chapter 73, verse 6 tells us, surely the hours of night is the time when impression upon soul is more keen and speech more certain. It is necessary to purify our minds before our souls are led for a blissful submission to the will and plan of Allah, whatever they may be. After a steady practice, merciful Allah's presence is felt so close by our souls that they have no desire to seek help from anyone beside Allah. The thought of standing before a grave and seeking is repulsive, and such an act would amount to rejecting the faith. We repeatedly do recite in our ritual prayers, to Thee alone we worship, from Thee alone we seek help. As if in response, most merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has assured His believers, and I quote, so remember me, and I shall remember you, and be grateful unto me, and reject not faith. Chapter 2, verse 152. Remember me, and I shall remember you is a divine promise to those who have been grateful have not rejected the faith. My dear brothers and sisters, I have personally known few Muslims who get up in the night and remember Allah's attributes silently, deep within their soul with humility, reverence and awe. Inshallah, if we were to get up in the night with Allah's mercy, we may experience the bliss and the good pleasure of our Rabb by remembering Him. Chapter 9, verse 72. While speaking of the paradise, Allah reveals, but the greatest bliss is in the good pleasure of Allah, and that is the supreme triumph. Let us go to the third pillar of Islam, zakat. This word is derived from the word zakah, which signifies to be pure. Giving the charity purifies the wealth and soul of the donor. It is essential to have a purified soul for its spiritual upliftment. The rules for giving zakat are well defined by the Islamic scholars. Briefly, a Muslim is obliged to pay once a year a small percentage of one's net balance after personal and family expenses, etc. Here is a verse that goes far beyond than giving 2.5% annually. I quote, and they ask you how much they should donate. Say, the surplus. Thus does Allah make clear to you His revelations in order that you may reflect. Chapter 2, verse 219. Let me repeat, Allah reveals to donate in His cause that which is surplus. My dear brothers and sisters, reflect. Even if a small number of believers to whom Allah has blessed with enormous wealth, plus gifted with source of sustained income, were to listen this verse and respond, Samina wa Atana, we hear and we obey, the status of Muslim Ummah before all other communities would be significantly higher. Education is the key to the success of the Ummah in socio-economic and political fields. We Muslims, with those kinds of financial resources in billions of dollars, can build top-ranking universities, best educational facilities and research institutions for the future generations to come. Al-Islam of the next century would come out marching ahead of what our ancestors did during the golden age of Islamic Renaissance between 7th and 13th centuries, inshallah. Finally, the divine truth is, and I quote, and if anyone commits sin, he earns it against his own soul. Chapter 4, verse 111. Another verse, whatsoever good you send before you is for your souls. You will surely find it with Allah better and greater reward. Chapter 73, verse 20. Allah has spoken the truth only if we were to hear and reflect.